The sun hung low over the alien desert, red and heavy, casting long shadows across the broken huts of the colony. The air was dry, the ground cracked, and silence ruled the place except for the whistling wind. A lone human walked slowly along, the dirt path, his boots kicking up small clouds of dust. He had seen many worlds, but this one felt different, tired, abandoned, and hopeless. As he passed the edge of the colony, he noticed how the alien villagers turned their faces away. Their eyes carried fear and their movements were sharp, as if they wanted to hide something. He said nothing. He had learned that sometimes silence told more truth than words. But then, through the heavy quiet, he heard it. A faint sound, almost lost in the wind. It was a child's voice. He stopped, his head turning toward the sound. It was not laughter or play. It was a cry, soft but filled with pain. The human's heartbeat quickened. Against the setting sun, near a pile of stone ruins, he saw a small figure kneeling in the dust. It was an alien child, thin and trembling. Her skin was pale gray, her clothes torn and dirty. She was holding the hand of someone lying beside her. The human stepped closer, and the sight cut deep into his heart. It was her mother. The woman lay on the ground, her body weak, her breathing shallow. Dust clung to her face and her eyes were half closed. The child shook her gently, tears streaking down her face. "Please wake up, mother," the child whispered. "Please, someone help us." The villagers nearby did not move. They stood in small groups, whispering, their expressions cold. One shook his head. Another spat on the ground. None of them came closer. The human felt anger rising in his chest. He walked toward the girl, and as his shadow fell over her, she looked up. Her eyes were wide, glowing faintly with alien light, filled with fear but also desperate hope. "Please," she begged in a broken voice, her words trembling. "Save my mother, don't let her die." The human froze. For a moment his mind raced. He was a stranger here, he did not know their laws or their reasons. But looking at the child, he understood one thing. If he walked away, her mother would not survive the night. He knelt beside them. The mother's pulse was faint. Her lips were dry, cracked from thirst. The human's hand tightened. He looked back at the villagers, searching for answers. "Why is no one helping?" he demanded. An old alien stepped forward, his voice cold. "She is marked. She is cursed. If she dies, it is her fate." The child screamed, clutching her mother's hand tighter. "She is not cursed. She is my mother. Please help her." The human stared at the crowd. Their eyes were hard, filled with fear but no compassion. They would let her die because it was easier than showing mercy. He felt his jaw tighten. He remembered other places, other times when people had turned away from those in need. He had sworn never to be like them. He reached into his pack and pulled out his water flask. Lifting the mother's head gently, he let a few drops fall onto her lips. Her throat moved as she swallowed, weak but alive. The child's eyes widened with relief. "You can save her," the girl whispered, hope flooding her voice. The villagers gasped, some murmuring in anger. The old alien shook his head. "You do not know what you bring upon yourself, human. Leave her. Leave them both." The human ignored him. He had already made his choice. He placed his hand on the child's shoulder, steady and strong. "I will not leave you. I will not leave her." The child's tears fell again, but this time they were tears of fragile hope. She clung to his arm as if he were her last anchor in a storm. The human knew danger was coming. He could feel the eyes of the villagers on his back, full of warning. But he also knew one thing. He had heard the cry in the dust, and humanity could not stay silent. As the sun sank lower, the desert grew colder. The human stood tall, the mother still lying weak in the dust, the child holding on to him. In that moment, the story began. A story of a desperate plea, a dying mother, and a human who refused to turn away. The human stood tall in the fading light, the alien child clinging to his arm while her mother lay weak in the dust. The air was heavy, filled with whispers. Around them, more villagers gathered, their faces tight with anger, fear, and something colder than either: indifference. The human looked at them, hoping to see one kind face, one hand ready to help. But every eye that met his carried only warning. They wanted him to step back, to walk away, to leave the child's plea unanswered. The girl's voice trembled as she cried out again, "Please, someone help her. Please, she is my mother." Her small hands shook as she pressed against the woman's chest, as if her touch alone could keep the life inside. No one moved. One villager, taller than the rest, stepped forward. His skin was dark blue, his arms strong, his expression hard as stone. He pointed at the mother with a sharp finger. "She is marked. She carries sickness, curse, or punishment from the stars we do not know. What we know is this: if she is saved, our village will suffer." The crowd murmured in agreement. Heads nodded. The human felt a chill run down his spine, not from the night air, but from the coldness of their hearts. "She is not cursed," the human said firmly, his voice cutting through the whispers. "She is alive. She is a mother. That child still believes in her. How can you stand and do nothing?" The blue-skinned villager narrowed his eyes. "You are not one of us, human. You do not understand. Leave her, or leave this place. Your choice." The child pressed closer to the human, her small fingers digging into his sleeve. "Please don't leave us, please." Her words pierced him deeper than any blade. He saw fear in her eyes, but behind it burned something brighter. A desperate faith that he, a stranger, would not turn away like the rest. The human's chest tightened. He had walked many worlds, seen cruelty in many shapes, but this moment was different. Here was a test, not of strength, but of humanity. Would he be like the crowd, or would he stand alone? He knelt again beside the mother, checking her breathing. It was shallow, uneven. Her hand twitched weakly in his. She was fading. He knew that if he hesitated, she would not last the night. "I cannot leave her," the human whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. Then louder, his voice steady, "If you will not help, then I will." The villagers erupted in angry shouts. "Foolish human," one spat. "You bring death to yourself." Another shouted, "Leave her on the ground. Do not defy the will of the stars." The human ignored them. He lifted the mother carefully, into his arms. She was light, far too light, her strength drained away. Dust fell from her clothes as he stood. The child gasped softly, hope shining in her face as she hurried to his side. The crowd surged forward, blocking his path. Their voices grew harsher. "You cannot take her," the tall villager declared. "She belongs here. Her fate is sealed." The human's eyes narrowed. "She belongs with her child. She belongs with life, not death in the dirt." The tension thickened. For a moment it seemed the villagers might attack. Their shoulders squared, their hands curled into fists. The human stood ready, his jaw set, his grip on the mother firm. The child trembled at his side, but her eyes never left him. Then, as the wind whistled through the ruins, something shifted. A few of the villagers stepped back, unwilling to be the first to act. Their fear was strong, but so was the sight of the stranger who stood unshaken against them all. The tall villager spat on the ground. "Go then, human, carry your curse with you, do not return." The crowd parted, but their eyes followed, sharp and burning. The human felt the weight of their hatred pressing on his back as he walked forward. The child hurried beside him, her small steps struggling to keep up. She held her mother's hand as it dangled weakly from his arms. "Thank you," she whispered again and again, her voice breaking. "Thank you." The human did not answer. His mind was sharp with resolve. Every step away from the crowd carried risk. He knew they would not forgive him for this. He knew shadows would follow. But he also knew he had made the only choice he could live with. Behind him, the villagers' whispers turned into curses carried by the wind. Ahead, the desert stretched wide and cold, the path uncertain. Yet in the middle of that harsh world, a fragile light burned, the hope of a child, and the promise of humanity. As night began to fall, the human did not look back. The refusal of the crowd had spoken, but so had he. Where others turned away, he had answered, and that answer would change everything. The desert night grew colder as the human walked, the weak mother in his arms and the alien child close at his side. The wind cut against his face, carrying with it the whispers of the villagers still ringing in his ears. They had refused to help. They had cast the woman away as cursed, as a burden unworthy of saving. But he had chosen differently. He had chosen to carry life, even when the whole crowd turned against him. The girl clung to her mother's hand, her steps stumbling, on the rough ground, yet she never let go. Every so often she glanced up at the human, her eyes glowing faintly in the starlight. "Will she live?" she asked in a voice so small it was almost lost to the wind. The human looked at the pale face of the woman in his arms. Her breath came, weak, shallow. But still it came. "I will do everything I can," he answered firmly. "As long as she breathes, there is hope." The child's grip on his arm tightened, as if those words were the only thing keeping her from breaking apart. Behind them, the village lights faded, but the weight of their hatred did not. The human could feel it pressing on his back. He knew they might follow. He knew that by saving the mother he had made himself their enemy. Yet he walked on, his jaw set, his steps steady. Courage was not the absence of fear. It was the will to move forward despite it. They reached the edge of the desert where a dry ridge rose against the night sky. The human found a small hollow beneath the rocks, a place where the wind was weaker. He laid the woman gently on a blanket from his pack. The girl crouched beside her, brushing dust from her mother's face with trembling hands. "She is so cold," the girl whispered, panic rising in her voice. The human lit a small fire. The flames flickered, casting light on their faces. He pulled out a pouch of water and a small ration of dried food. He gave the child a piece first. "Eat," he said softly. "You need strength to help her." She shook her head. "No, give it to her. Please, she needs it more." The human's eyes softened. He broke the food in two, offering half to the mother, moistening it with water so she could swallow. He placed the other half in the child's hand. "If you are weak, she will not have you to hold her when she wakes. Eat, little one." The child hesitated, then nodded, tears running down her face as she obeyed. The mother stirred weakly. Her lips moved, though no sound came. The human leaned close, letting her sip a few drops of water. She swallowed slowly, her chest rising just a little stronger than before. The girl gasped. She drank. "She is still with us." The human gave a small nod. He kept his face steady, but inside, relief touched him. It was a small victory, but in moments like this, small victories mattered more than anything. As the night deepened, the desert grew silent. Stars spread across the sky, sharp and endless. The fire crackled softly. The child curled against her mother, holding her hand tightly. The human sat on the other side, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He knew danger was not gone. The villagers had let him leave, but they might not let him keep her. A sound broke the quiet, a faint shuffle in the distance. The human's hand moved to the weapon at his side. His eyes scanned the dark, every muscle alert. For a moment, the desert seemed to hold its breath. Then the sound faded, swallowed by the wind. The human exhaled slowly but did not relax. He knew the test had only begun. Carrying the mother out of the village was the first step. Now came the harder part, keeping her alive against hunger, against sickness, against those who still wanted her gone. The child looked at him across the fire, her eyes wide and filled with trust. "You won't leave us, will you?" The human shook his head. "No, you are not alone now." Her small shoulders eased, and for the first time that night she closed her eyes, drifting into uneasy sleep with her hand still clutched to her mother's. The human sat awake, the firelight dancing across his face. His heart was heavy, but his resolve was clear. The first step had been taken and there was no turning back. Whatever trials waited in the coming days, he would face them, for the cry and the dust had reached him, and humanity could not walk away. The fire burned low by dawn, its glow casting faint light on the hollow beneath the rocks. The human sat awake, shoulders stiff, his eyes fixed on the desert horizon. The mother slept, her breathing slow but steadier than before. The child curled against her, still holding her hand tightly as though letting go would mean losing her forever. The human had not slept. His mind carried too much weight. He had chosen to act when the whole village refused. He had carried the mother through their anger, through their threats. He had chosen life when they had chosen silence. Yet choices came with consequences. He knew that by saving her, he had placed himself and the child in danger. The question was not whether the villagers would come, but when. As the first rays of sunlight spilled across the desert, the mother stirred. Her eyelids fluttered open, weak but alive. The girl gasped and leaned close. "Mother, you are awake," she whispered, tears already filling her eyes. The woman's voice was faint, her words broken. You should not be here." Her gaze shifted to the human, confusion and fear mixing in her expression. "They will punish you." The human shook his head. "Let them try. Your daughter cried for help and I answered. That is all that matters." The mother's lips trembled. She tried to speak again, but coughed, her body weak. The child helped her sit up slowly, her small hands gentle but determined. "You are safe now," the girl said, her voice trembling yet strong. "He saved you. He carried you away." The woman's eyes softened as she looked at the child, then turned back to the human. "Why?" she asked. "You do not know us. Why would you risk this?" The human's face was steady, though inside, the weight pressed harder. Because no one else would. Because a plea like hers should never go unanswered. The woman closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe she might live. But peace was short. A sharp sound echoed through the ridge, the snap of a branch, the scrape of boots against stone. The human rose to his feet, hand moving to his weapon. His eyes scanned the desert rim. Shadows shifted between the rocks. "They are coming," he said quietly. The girl's face went pale. She clutched her mother's arm tightly. "It's them, the villagers." Fear spread across the mother's face. "They will not let me go. They will drag me back." The human looked at both of them, then at the rising sun. This was the moment he had dreaded. Saving her once was only the beginning. Now he had to choose again. Fight, flee, or surrender. Each path carried risk and none promised safety. The child's voice broke through his thoughts. "Please don't give us back to them. Please protect my mother." Her words pierced through every doubt. The human's jaw tightened. "I will not hand you over. Whatever comes, I stand with you." The mother shook her head weakly. "You do not understand. If you protect us, they will make you an enemy. You will lose your place here. You may even lose your life." The human's voice was calm but strong. "Then so be it. A life without courage is no life at all." Shadows grew clearer at the edge of the ridge. Figures moved closer, their voices carrying on the wind. Angry words echoed in the alien tongue, sharp and demanding. The human stepped forward, placing himself between the intruders and the family behind him. His stance was firm, his resolve unshaken. The villagers appeared, their faces hard, their hands gripping weapons of wood and metal. At their front was the tall, blue-skinned villager who had spoken the night before. His eyes burned with anger. "You dare defy us, human?" the man snarled. "We warned you, the woman carries ruin. Release her now or you share her fate." The child screamed, holding her mother tighter. The mother's body shook with fear. The human, however, did not move. His voice rang clear. "She is not ruin. She is life. And I will not abandon her. The crowd bristled. Some shouted, others raised their weapons higher. The desert air grew tense, heavy, as if the land itself held its breath. The human knew this was no longer just about saving one mother and child. It was about proving a truth, whether mercy had value, whether courage could stand against cruelty. The weight of that choice pressed on him, but he did not bend. He raised his hand, gripping his weapon tight, and stepped forward into the rising sun. If you want her, you will have to go through me. The villagers faltered, shocked by his defiance. The child's eyes filled with awe, clinging tighter to her mother. The mother's lips moved, whispering words too soft for the wind to carry, but her tears said what her voice could not. Gratitude, hope, and a fragile belief in humanity. The ridge became silent again, but it was no longer the silence of fear. It was the silence before the storm, the moment when every choice would matter. The human had taken the weight of that choice, and now the world would answer. The standoff at the ridge stretched long and tense. The human stood firm, his shadow cast by the rising sun across the rocks. Behind him, the mother leaned against the stone, her body weak, but her eyes fixed on the man who had chosen to shield her. The child clung to her mother's arm, whispering softly, "He will not let them take you." The villagers murmured among themselves, their anger heavy, their voices sharp, yet none stepped forward to strike. The sight of a lone human defying their will unsettled them. The tall, blue-skinned leader glared with hatred, his jaw tight, but even he hesitated. Finally, with a snarl, he spat on the ground. "You will regret this," he said coldly. "Her fate will become your fate. Carry your curse far from us. Do not return." The crowd pulled back, their footsteps retreating over the ridge. Their voices carried on the wind, curses and warnings mixing with the sound of the desert. Soon, only silence remained. The human lowered his weapon, but did not relax. His eyes stayed on the horizon until the last shadow was gone. Only then did he turn back. The child rushed to him, clutching his hand. "They are gone, for now." He nodded, though his voice was steady. "Yes, but they will not forget. We must move. We cannot stay here." He lifted the mother once more, careful with her frail body. Together they left the ridge, traveling, deeper into the desert where the villagers would not follow. The sun climbed higher, burning against the sand, but still they pressed on. By midday, the human found what he had searched for, a small shelter of stone, half buried in the sand. Once it might have been an outpost or resting hut for travelers, now it stood forgotten, abandoned by time. He pushed the door open. Dust swirled, but inside there was shade and broken furniture that could still serve a purpose. "This will do," he said softly. The child followed close, eyes wide as she looked around the dark shelter. "It is old," she whispered, "but it feels safe." He laid the mother on a low bench. The woman stirred faintly, her breathing labored but alive. The child rushed to her side, wiping her face with a cloth dampened by the little water they had. The human began to work. He cleared the floor, set stones around the hearth, and rebuilt a small fire. He opened his pack, rationing out what food he had. The little he carried was now theirs, shared without hesitation. The child watched him carefully. "You give everything to us," she said quietly. "What about you?" He glanced at her, his face calm. "I will manage. Your mother needs it more." Her small hands tightened around the cloth she held. "No one has ever done this before, not for us." The human did not answer. He knew words meant little compared to action. Instead, he sat near the fire, checking the mother's pulse again, steadying her breaths with careful sips of water. Each sign of life was fragile yet real. As night came, the desert winds howled outside the broken walls. The child curled close to her mother, whispering soft words in their alien tongue, words of comfort. The human sat awake again, his eyes scanning the doorway, his body a shield against the storm. Hours passed in silence. The fire crackled, the mother slept, and the child finally drifted into uneasy dreams. Alone with his thoughts, the human felt the full weight of what he had chosen. He had turned his back on safety, on the will of the crowd for the life of two strangers. The path ahead would not be easy. The villagers might come again. Supplies were scarce. The desert was merciless. Yet as he looked at the child resting with her mother, he knew his choice was right. Humanity was not measured in words, but in moments like this, in giving shelter when no one else would. A sound broke the quiet. The human's head lifted, eyes sharp. From outside came faint footsteps, slow, deliberate. He rose, weapon ready, moving silently toward the door. The firelight flickered against his back. The steps stopped just beyond the wall. A shadow stretched across the sand. The human waited, heart steady, breath controlled. Then a voice spoke, low and rough. "You should not have taken her." The child stirred in her sleep. The mother shifted weakly, but neither woke. The human stood alone at the threshold, facing the unknown figure outside. His voice rang steady, in the dark. "Then you should have helped her. But you didn't. So now she is under my protection." The silence that followed was heavy, charged with danger. The human's grip on his weapon tightened. Outside, the shadow lingered, then slowly faded into the night. The human did not lower his guard until the desert was quiet once more. Only then did he return to the fire, sitting with his back against the wall, his eyes fixed on the doorway. The child shifted in her sleep, her small hand reaching blindly until it found his arm. Even in dreams, she sought the safety he gave. He covered her hand gently with his own. In that broken shelter, with danger pressing from every side, the human made his stand. This was the shelter of humanity, not of stone or fire, but of heart, the courage to hold the weak when the whole world turned away. The shelter lay quiet under the silver light of 2 alien moons. Inside, the fire burned low, its glow soft, against the stone walls. The child slept beside her mother, her small hand still resting on the human's arm, as if it were the only anchor she trusted. The mother's breath came slow but stronger than before. The human sat awake, his back straight, eyes fixed on the door. The desert outside was restless. The wind hissed through the cracks of the broken walls. Every now and then he thought he heard movement, steps crunching in the sand, whispers carried by the night. He tightened his grip on his weapon. The villagers had let him go, but their hatred had not died. Hatred never slept. A sudden knock against the outer wall broke the silence. The sound was sharp, deliberate. The human stood instantly, every muscle tense. The child stirred but did not wake. The mother shifted weakly, whispering something he could not hear. The knock came again, followed by a voice outside, harsh, commanding. "Human, give her back. She is marked. She belongs to us." The human's jaw clenched. He stepped closer to the doorway, his shadow stretching across the floor. "She belongs to no one," he said firmly. "She belongs to her child, to life. Leave us." Angry shouts rose in reply. Stones struck the walls. Dust fell from the cracks. The child woke with a cry, clutching her mother's arm. The mother tried to sit, fear filling her eyes. "They have come," she whispered. "They will not stop this time." The human knelt beside them, his voice calm, steady like steel. "Stay behind me. No matter what happens, stay with each other." The girl nodded, though her small body shook with fear. She pressed her forehead against her mother's hand, whispering a promise that she would not let go. The door rattled as someone struck it. Shadows moved outside, many of them. Their voices filled the night with threats. "Open the door, human. Do not fight us. You cannot stand against all of us." The human rose to his full height, the firelight flickering across his face. He knew they were right. Alone, he could not defeat them all. But courage was not about numbers. Courage was about standing when standing seemed impossible. He pulled the door open. Cold desert wind rushed inside. Outside stood a dozen villagers, their weapons raised, their eyes glowing with anger under the moonlight. At their front, the tall blue-skinned leader sneered. "You had your chance to walk away," the leader said. "Now you will pay for your defiance." The human stepped into the doorway, blocking their path. His voice carried across the night. "I will not hand her to you. If you want her, you will have to go through me." The villagers roared, surging forward. The first swung a club, but the human blocked it, striking back with quick precision. Another lunged with a blade, but he twisted aside, forcing the attacker into the wall. The fight exploded in the night, loud and violent. Inside, the child screamed, holding her mother tighter. The mother tried to rise, but her body was too weak. She could only watch in terror as the man who had saved them stood against the storm, alone. Blows landed hard. The human's breath grew heavy, his arms aching with every strike. Still, he stood unbroken. For every hit he took, he gave another back. The doorway became his shield, the narrow space keeping the crowd from overwhelming him at once. But numbers pressed hard. A stone struck his shoulder, pain ripping through him. A blade cut across his arm, blood running down. He staggered, yet his stance did not break. His eyes blazed with resolve. "You call this justice?" he shouted through the clash. "To kill a mother before her child? To call mercy a curse? Shame on you." The words cut deeper than his weapon. For a moment, hesitation spread among them. Some faltered, their eyes shifting. Doubt crept into their rage. The leader snarled, pushing them forward. "Do not listen. He is nothing but a fool. End him." They charged again. The human braced, but his strength was fading. His chest heaved, sweat and blood mixing on his skin. Still, he did not move aside. Behind him, he heard the child crying out, "Please don't leave us, please don't fall." Her voice poured fire into his veins. He roared, pushing forward with renewed strength. His strikes grew sharper, his stance unshakable. The crowd staggered back, shocked by his endurance, by the fury born not of hate but of protection. The night stretched long, the fight endless, yet slowly, the tide turned. The villagers, frustrated and bruised, began to retreat. Their voices grew bitter, their threats colder, but fewer dared step forward again. Finally, the leader glared with venom. "This is not the end. You will not. Keep her forever. When your strength fails, we will return." With that, they pulled back into the shadows, disappearing into the desert. The human stood in the doorway, chest heaving, his body battered but unbroken. Inside, the child rushed to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "You didn't let them take her. You kept your promise." He placed a bloodied hand gently on her head. "As long as I breathe, no one will take her from you." The mother's eyes filled with tears. Weak as she was, she managed to whisper, "You risked everything, and for us." The human looked at her, his expression calm but firm. "No. For what is right." The fire crackled behind them, the night silent once more. The trial had come, fierce and merciless, but the human had endured. And in the heart of that shelter, the bond between them grew stronger. A bond forged in courage, sealed in sacrifice, and destined to change everything. The night had ended in blood and fire. The human sat in the broken shelter, his body aching, wounds burning but his spirit unbroken. The villagers had come in anger and left in silence, but their threat still lingered in the cold desert wind. He knew they would return. They had not been defeated in heart, only delayed. Beside the fire, the mother lay weak but alive, her breathing steadier than before. The child never left her side, her small hand resting against her mother's chest as though she could guard her with touch alone. Her eyes, wide and filled with fear, turned again and again to the human. "You are hurt," she whispered. The human looked down at the blood on his arm and shoulder. He tied a cloth tightly around the wound, his voice calm. "I have been hurt before. Wounds heal. What matters is that you are both safe." The child shook her head. "They will come again. They will never stop." The human gazed into the fire, the flames flickering in his eyes. "Perhaps, but when they do, I will be Here, I gave you my word. The mother stirred, her voice faint. You cannot fight them forever. You risk everything for us. Why? The human turned to her. His words carried no hesitation. Because someone had to answer her cry. Because life is worth protecting, even if it cost me everything. Her eyes filled with tears. She tried to speak, but her voice broke. The child leaned closer, whispering in her ear. He is not like them. He did not turn away. Silence fell again, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the whisper of the desert outside. By morning, the human stood at the doorway, watching the sun rise over the barren land. His body was weary, but his mind was sharp. He knew the villagers might already be gathering. He knew more trials would come. But as he looked back at the mother and child, he also knew he had no regret. The girl stepped up beside him, clutching his sleeve. You are not leaving us, are you? He rested a hand gently on her head. No, you are not alone, not anymore. She smiled faintly through her tired eyes, and for the first time since he had found her in the dust, hope lit her face. The day stretched long, and the human spent it strengthening the shelter. He set stones higher around the fire pit, secured the door with old beams, and gathered what supplies he could from the desert. Every move was slow, his wounds aching, but he worked without complaint. The child helped where she could, carrying water in small jars, holding tools steady. Her mother, though weak, watched with quiet gratitude. By evening, the shelter had become more than broken stone. It had become a home, fragile yet real. That night, as stars filled the sky, the human sat once more by the fire. The child leaned against him, her mother resting nearby. For the first time since their desperate flight, peace touched the air. The mother whispered softly, her voice carrying across the quiet. You have given us life again. I thought all doors had closed, that no one would care. But you came. The human looked into the fire. I did only what humanity should always do. Stand when no one else will. If we cannot answer the cry of the weak, then we are nothing. Her eyes shone with tears. You are more than human. To us you are salvation. The child's voice, small but strong, joined in. You are our family now. The human's heart stirred at those words. Family. It was not blood that bound them, but choice. In this desolate place, among strangers who had turned cold, he had found something greater than survival. He had found meaning. The desert winds rose again, but they no longer carried only threats. They carried a story, of a cry in the dust, of a mother saved, of a child's faith answered by one man's courage. It was a story that would spread, whispered first, then told louder. When no one else listened, humanity did. The human sat in silence, the child safe against his side, the mother resting peacefully. The weight of the world had pressed on him, but he had not broken. He had answered, and in that answer lay the truth, that the heart of humanity is not in power or fear, but in the courage to protect, the strength to care, and the will to stand. When all others turn away, the night deepened, but in the broken shelter light remained. Humanity's answer had been given, and it would never be forgotten.